In this video, we're going to show you how to install the rear struts on your Honda Ridgeline located behind your rear wheels. Using a 22mm socket, you can loosen and remove your lug nuts. Once you have your lug nuts removed, go ahead and grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. With our wheel removed, we have our pole jack underneath the rear control arm here. Now what we're going to do is we're not raising the vehicle. We simply want to go ahead and just support that rear end. Now we want to go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt here. This is a 24mm or a 15/16. The other side is a fixed nut on the other side. I'm going to raise this just a little bit, and we're going to raise and lower our pole jack to see what we have for flexibility here. You see that just kind of bounced a little bit, so we are free there. I'm going to disconnect the inboard swiper end like here is a 14mm nut here. We did wire brush this and put some rust penetrant on it, so hopefully this will zip right out for us. Now we're going to move out to the outboard portion here. And we want to go ahead and remove this bolt here that's supporting the rear knuckle to the rear control arm. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and rotate this here. I'm going to take a lug nut and I'm going to make sure that one of my studs is at the furthest point down at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to throw a lug nut on this. The reason why I'm doing this is I'm going to use my pole jack to support our rear knuckle. Now I don't want this rotor to flex in and out and push abnormal pressure on our caliper and bracket. So if you put a lug nut on, it's going to keep that rotor stable and locked inboard. Now I'm going to use my pole jack and I'm going to put it on the hat. Now I'm not raising the vehicle. This is simply to support this knuckle. It's just holding it in place. If you pull on it, it's holding it snug, but it's not raising the suspension. Let's now go ahead, loosen and remove this rear bolt here. We're going to use a 22mm socket on the outboard bolt. This has a fixed nut on the other side on the control arm. Now I'm going to use a pry bar between the control arm and the knuckle, and I'm just going to kind of give this a little push here. Now this is separating here. I'm going to go ahead and crank up on my pole jack here. If you have a regular jack, you can have it under the rotor here with a block of wood. You can see that our control arm is moving. If you go to the inboard portion here, you want to make sure that your sway bar end link is pulled out and that this comes down. We just want to make sure that the control arm is moving enough where we unbolt the 3 bolts on the top of our strut assembly, we can manipulate this out and beyond this control arm. So that's what we're trying to make sure we have the mobility for. And it looks like this is going to work out good for us. Now on the upper portion of our strut, we have 3 14mm bolts going up into the frame. There's 1 on the rear section and then 2 on the front section there. I'm going to use a super long extension because you have to get around the control arm and everything. Let's go ahead, loosen and remove these. Okay, let's move to the 2 forward bolts. All right, now that we got our 3rd bolt out, we're now going to go ahead and grab the lower control and we're going to pull this down. And we want to work our strut up and out. Go ahead and line your strut up, put it up into the frame. Grab that control arm and stretch it on down. Now, one of the things that you want to pay attention to here is the positioning. The holes on the upper portion of the strut where bolts to the frame, those are slotted, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bolt for the strut and I'm going to secure my strut on the lower end first. Now, I did run the bolt through my wire wheel machine to clean the threads, and I put some anti-seize compound on the threads just in case for any reason this bolt needs to come out down the road. Now, I'm not going to tighten it. I know it's gone in several threads and that's secured there. I want to go ahead and get our upper bearing plate lined up with the slotted holes to the hole on the frame. Now, sometimes that doesn't line up perfectly. So you can use a rubber mallet or a dead blow. And you're going to go ahead and tap that to go ahead and get that to move a little bit. Now that we have our strut up into place here, when we have our lower bolt in, we used our jack to raise this up a little bit to get it closer to the body here. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and get our bolt started. Always start your bolts by hand. Now, we did clean the threads on our bolts and we put a little bit of anti-seize compound on those bolts. And once we get all 3 of these in, we'll go ahead and jack up our lower control arm, press this up against the body and tighten these down. And we're going to crank up on our jack here. You can see that our strut is seating up against the frame, which is perfect. That's what we want. And then we'll go ahead and snug these down. Go ahead and do this for all 3. Once you get all these done, we'll come back and torque them. Now, ideally, Honda wants you to replace these bolts before you assemble this here. In our particular case, for video purposes, we are simply reusing the original ones. So you want to go ahead and torque down these 3 13mm bolts to 25 foot-pounds. And do this for all 3. And then once we get these done, once we get all 3 of these done here, we're going to go ahead and torque the lower bolt. All right, now we're going to go ahead and use our jack and pull down on our knuckle here to go ahead and line up this hole. You can use the rubber mallet or dead blow hammer to go ahead and smack this down as we're going. Now, to help you get this lined up, you can use a pry bar between the knuckle and then use your mallet to adjust accordingly. So now when you're installing this here, you want to go ahead and look through the other side on the control arm and the knuckle and make sure that your bolt hole is lining up. If it's not, go ahead and use your pry bar to go ahead and adjust this and twist this around a little bit to get that bolt to come through the other side. All right, so here is a very good tip for you when you're installing this bolt here. Normally, when you're installing this bolt, you're going to get the front to line up and go inside. When it comes to the back side, to the fixed nut on the control arm, it's going to be at an angle, and you're trying to jack this up and move it all around, and it's not going to go in. Here's a tip. Use a pry bar. You're going to go in between the control arm and the knuckle, and you're simply going to push away. You're going to work this. You can see the knuckle moving. And then while you're doing that, simply take your ratchet and your socket. You're going to apply some pressure and go ahead and work this bolt. That's going to get that coned portion of that bolt to go in and catch those threads. That's exactly what we had to do. It took us a few moments to get that lined up, but it is now lined up, it's caught. But you can go ahead and use that tip when you're going to get that lined up, because you won't be able to manually or physically do that without a tool. So pry bar between the knuckle and the inboard portion of that control arm is going to be your saving grace. Before we tighten these down, we need to go ahead and raise up our jack here, and we're going to put this into what we call a neutral ride height, as if the vehicle had its wheels on and it's on the ground. It's going to compress that suspension. If we tighten and torque these now, it's going to be in a droop position, and then when we put our wheels on, it's going to cause these bushings to bind, giving you a poor ride and all kinds of other issues. So you can run these bolts down pretty dang close. Don't tighten them. And then we're going to jack this up until our vehicle just starts to come off of our lift, or in your case, you're going to jack this up till it just starts to come off of your jack stands, and then torque these down. We're going to use our jack and raise this up to our neutral ride height. Okay, our vehicle is just starting to move off of our lift. So the torque specs, we have 156 on the strut and 105 on the knuckle. .156. Go ahead and lower our jack. Once we lower our jack, we're going to go ahead and remove that lug nut. We're going to remove that lug nut from the brake rotor. Once we remove our lug nut here, I don't want you to forget that if you did use that rubber mallet or you used any tools on that brake rotor, go ahead and grab something and go ahead and clean that brake rotor. Your brakes are going to perform the best when they're clean, so you don't want to have any grease or anything like that on there that you might have gotten on there by handling this. So we're just using some regular brake solvent. Don't forget both sides. All right, let's go ahead and install our sway bar end link. Go ahead and line up that sway bar end link. Go ahead and get that nut started. Let's go ahead and zip that down. You want to go ahead and torque that to 36 foot-pounds. Now that you've torqued everything down, install your wheel. You want to go ahead and repeat this process for the driver's side. Don't forget, anytime you touch suspension components, you want to go ahead and have that vehicle properly aligned at a reputable shop. Go ahead and grab your wheel, line that up. We'll install our lug nuts. Once we have all of these started, we'll go ahead and snug those down. Let's now go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. When doing this, you want to do it in a crisscross or star pattern. You're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.